Ready for a deep dive that might just kind of flip your understanding of life on its head?
Ooh, sounds intense. I'm ready.
Well, today we're diving into the world of symbiosis
Okay,
and its role in evolution.
I like it.
And to guide us, we're turning to the work of, well, a true scientific rebel, Lynn Margulis.
Ah, Margulis.
Yeah.
I've always found her work fascinating. Definitely a pioneer, always pushing the boundaries of evolutionary thought. Even her critics had to acknowledge that, you know.
Totally. So to really understand her ideas, we're going to be focusing on a 2011 interview she gave to Discover magazine.
Great choice. That interview really lays out her controversial ideas.
Yeah, and it's not like she just added to evolutionary theory. She pretty much turned it on its head.
You could say that for sure.
Like her big idea was symbiogenesis.
Right.
This crazy process where organisms merge together to become something totally new.
Exactly. She argued that symbiosis, those close relationships between different organisms, it's not just some quirky little side note in evolution.
Right.
It's the main event. It's the driving force behind those big leaps that create new species.
Okay, I'm already intrigued. But let's back up a bit. Most of us, learned about the 5 kingdoms of life in school.
Yeah, animals, plants, fungi, all that.
Right, all that. But Margulis says, no, there are really just 2 kingdoms. Bacteria and everything else.
Okay, now how does that even work?
I know. It's pretty mind-blowing.
It is. So think about it this way. Your cells, they're super complex, right?
Yeah.
But inside them, you've got these little guys called mitochondria.
Oh, yeah, the powerhouses.
The powerhouses, exactly. They provide all that energy your cells need. And plants,
Right.
they have chloroplasts, which let them do that whole photosynthesis thing. But here's the thing. Margulis showed that these weren't just regular cellular components.
Ooh.
They were once free-living bacteria.
Wait, so you're telling me the mitochondria in my body right now are actually descendants of ancient bacteria?
That's exactly what she's saying,
Whoa, that's wild.
isn't it?
But hold on, how did they even get in there?
Through symbiosis, of course.
Yeah.
Margulis theorized that, billions of years ago, one bacterium basically swallowed another one.
Okay.
But instead of digesting it like it normally would, they formed a partnership. The engulfed bacteria, they became mitochondria, or chloroplasts. They started providing these specialized functions, you see, while getting this nice, safe haven inside the host cell.
So it's kind of like I've got a whole other life form living inside my own cells.
In a way, yes. We're all walking ecosystems.
That's amazing. But did Margulis have any examples of symbiosis happening, today?
Oh, absolutely. Tons. Take the Elysia timida. It's a type of sea slug. This little guy actually steals chloroplasts from the algae it eats.
No way.
And incorporates them into its own cells.
Yeah.
So it literally becomes photosynthetic, like a plant.
Hold on, a sunbathing sea slug, that's incredible. But I need something a little less exotic.
Fair enough. Think about cows. Cows can't actually digest grass on their own. Yep. They rely on this whole community of microbes living in their gut to break down all those tough plant fibers. No microbes, no milk, no beef. It's symbiosis, right in our food chain.
That's really incredible. So it's not just about competition in nature, this cooperation, this merging of different organisms. It's essential for life as we know it.
It's the foundation of it all, really.
But if Margulis is right, what does that say about the traditional view of evolution? This slow, gradual change through random mutations.
Well, Margulis didn't completely dismiss mutations, but she saw them as more like fine-tuning the system.
Right.
Symbiogenesis, for her, that was the real game changer. It explains those big jumps in the fossil record where you suddenly have these brand new species appearing.
You're talking about what's called punctuated equilibria, right? The idea that evolution isn't always this slow, steady process, that it can happen in bursts.
Exactly. Imagine a long period of stability, everything's kind of chugging along, and then a major symbiotic event happens. And that leads to a whole new branch on the tree of life.
Wow. That's how Margulis saw it.
That's how she saw it.
This is some pretty radical stuff. So how did other scientists react to her ideas? I'm guessing not everyone was on board with this whole symbiogenesis revolution.
Let's just say Margulis was never one to shy away from a challenge. Some scientists, they found her ideas a little too speculative, not backed up by enough hard evidence, they said.
Okay.
And others, well, they accuse her of downplaying the importance of those traditional evolutionary mechanisms, like mutations and natural selection.
There's a big debate, huh?
It was quite the debate. Margulis, she had some pretty strong criticisms of the traditional neo-Darwinian view, too.
Oh, yeah. Like what?
Didn't she even call some of their mathematical models numerology?
Oh, wow. She really went there.
Yeah, she can be pretty blunt. Her main point was that some evolutionary biologists got too focused on these abstract models.
Mm.
And they weren't paying enough attention to the messy, the complex reality of life on Earth.
So instead of just focusing on genes and competition, she wanted scientists to consider the bigger picture, the way organisms actually interact and influence each other in the real world.
Precisely. She was advocating for a more holistic approach, one that acknowledged the interconnectedness of all living things.
Okay, I like that, interconnectedness. And that leads us to bacteria. We usually think of them as germs, things to avoid.
Mm-hmm.
But Margulis, she saw them as something much more fundamental, right?
Absolutely. She called them the foundation of life.
And for good reason, if you think about it.
Exactly. Remember, mitochondria and chloroplasts, those essential parts of our cells.
Uh-huh.
She believed they evolved from, you guessed it, free-living bacteria.
Right.
So in her view, bacteria are our ancestors. They're the building blocks from which all other life arose.
So instead of being separate from the microbial world, we're actually built from it.
Precisely. We are quite literally descended from those ancient bacteria.
Oh, that is a mind-blowing concept.
It is, isn't it? It shifts your whole perspective. And Margulis, she had this great way of explaining it.
How so?
She often used this analogy of a pointillist painting. You know, those paintings where up close is just a bunch of separate dots of color.
Yeah, I've seen them.
But then you step back and all those dots merge together.
Yeah.
And they create this recognizable image.
It's amazing.
It is. And in the same way, Margulis saw those individual bacteria as the dots that through symbiosis have formed the complex tapestry of life we see all around us.
That's beautiful. And it really highlights how even simple acts in nature, like a cow grazing in a field, are actually the result of these incredibly complex interactions between different organisms.
You got it.
It makes you realize we're all part of this intricate web of life, whether we realize it or not.
We are. And that awareness, that shift in perspective, that's what made Margulis such a revolutionary figure, I think. She didn't just discover new facts, she changed the way we think about life itself.
I mean, this is already so much to process, and I have a feeling we're just scratching the surface of Margulis's thought-provoking ideas. Welcome back to our deep dive into symbiosis and evolution with the amazing Lynn Margulis. Before we went to part 2, we were talking about how Margulis saw bacteria not as, just simple germs, but as the foundation of life itself.
Yeah, she really flipped the script on how we think about bacteria.
She did. She even compared them to the dots in a pointillist painting.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point.
Merging to form a larger, more complex image.
It really captures her whole view of life as this interconnected web, constantly evolving and changing through these collaborations and mergers.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And she really believed that symbiosis, not just competition, has been the key driver in those big evolutionary leaps we see in the fossil record.
Absolutely. It's about partnerships and how those relationships lead to these incredible breakthroughs.
It is. But Margulis also had some pretty strong opinions about the traditional neo-Darwinian view of evolution too.
Oh yeah, she definitely wasn't shy about critiquing the mainstream view.
She called some of their mathematical models numerology.
She did. Can you believe that? She felt that some scientists were just too focused on abstract theories, and they weren't paying enough attention to the complexities of real-world ecosystems.
Right. Margulis was all about observing nature in action, seeing those intricate relationships between organisms firsthand.
Totally. She was a true field biologist at heart.
Yeah.
Always pushing for a more holistic understanding of how life works.
So how did this emphasis on symbiosis and interconnectedness play out in her views on, us, humanity's role in all of this?
It's interesting. Margulis had this rather sobering view of humanity's impact on the planet.
Really? How so?
What she called this mammalian weeds,
Mammalian weeds?
Yeah, highlighting our tendency to overpopulate.
Oh.
To overconsume and just disrupt the balance of ecosystems.
Wow, mammalian weeds. That's a pretty harsh assessment.
It is, but it's also kind of thought-provoking, don't you think?
It is. So was she saying that humans are inherently destructive?
Not necessarily.
Yeah.
She pointed out that a lot of mammal species, even our own, have this tendency to overgrow their habitat.
Okay.
It's like this natural boom and bust cycle.
Right.
But in our case, with our technology and global reach,
Right.
we've amplified that cycle to a whole new level.
So it's not just about our individual choices, but also about the systems we've created, the way our society interacts with the natural world.
That's a big part of it.
That's a pretty challenging thought. So did Margulis offer any solutions, any way out of this weedy predicament, as you called it?
Well, she believed the key lies in recognizing our interconnectedness with all life. It's about shifting our perspective from one of dominance and control to one of respect and collaboration.
I like that.
Yeah.
But how do we actually put that into practice? It's one thing to talk about interconnectedness, but it's another to actually change our behavior both individually and as a society.
Oh, it's definitely a challenge for sure. But Margulis believed that understanding the power of symbiosis could offer us a new way forward. If we can see how cooperation and collaboration have shaped life on Earth for billions of years, perhaps we can apply those same principles to our relationship with the planet.
So instead of seeing ourselves as separate from nature, we need to see ourselves as a part of it,
Right.
subject to the same ecological laws and limits as any other species.
Exactly. It's about finding ways to live in harmony with the natural world.
Right.
Not just exploit it.
And Margulis, she was a strong advocate for interdisciplinary thinking, wasn't she?
Oh, absolutely. Bringing together insights from fields like ecology, economics, and even philosophy to find solutions to these complex challenges. She believed that science alone couldn't solve the problem.
Right.
We need a more holistic approach, one that considers the social, the ethical, and even the spiritual dimensions of our relationship with the planet.
Wow, that's really fascinating. Now, I know Margulis was a controversial figure.
Oh, for sure.
And even some of her supporters, they found some of her ideas a bit, out there.
Yeah, she definitely pushed the envelope.
Didn't she once claim that AIDS was actually a form of syphilis?
She did make that claim.
Yeah.
And it definitely generated a lot of controversy,
Right.
And it's important to clarify that the scientific consensus is that HIV is the cause of AIDS.
Of course.
But Margulis's, her willingness to challenge even deeply entrenched beliefs.
Right.
I think that's part of what made her such a compelling figure.
Yeah, she wasn't afraid to ask tough questions.
Nope.
Even if it meant, going against the grain. She was always pushing the boundaries of knowledge, trying to find new ways of understanding the world.
And that's what we need more of, isn't it?
It is. It's inspiring, actually. So that brings us to another one of Margulis's more unconventional ideas.
Okay.
The notion that consciousness exists in all living cells, not just in complex organisms like human.
Oh yeah, that's a big one.
It's a pretty radical concept. So how did she even define consciousness in that context?
Well, she argued that even single-celled organisms exhibit this kind of awareness, sensitivity to their environment and the ability to respond to stimuli. It's not the same as human consciousness, of course.
Right.
But she saw it as this continuum.
Okay.
With different levels of complexity and sophistication.
So instead of this binary view of consciousness.
Right, like you have it or you don't.
Yeah, exactly. She saw it as a spectrum, like a fundamental property of life itself, evolving and adapting along with everything else.
And that's a really interesting way to look at it, don't you think?
It is. It really changes how you think about, even the smallest creatures.
It does. And she believed that studying the behavior of even the simplest organisms could offer insights into the origins and evolution of consciousness as a whole.
Wow. It's a fascinating idea for sure, and one that's sure to spark a lot more research and debate in the years to come.
Oh, absolutely. I think we're just beginning to scratch the surface of what this all means.
It's exciting. This is all so much to absorb. We've covered a lot of ground here, from those tiny bacteria mergers that gave rise to complex cells to the controversial idea that cilia might have evolved from symbiotic spirochetes.
Right.
And we've explored Margulis's challenging views on humanity's role in the ecosystem and the nature of consciousness itself.
It's a lot to take in, but it's so important.
It is. And there's one more aspect of Margulis's work that I want to touch on before we wrap up this deep dive.
Okay, what's that?
She wasn't just a a theorist,
No.
she also used these specific examples from the natural world to illustrate her ideas.
Right, to bring them to life.
Yeah, exactly. We briefly mentioned the Elysia timida, that sea slug that steals chloroplasts from algae and becomes photosynthetic.
Yeah, that's such a cool example.
It is, but there's so much more to that story and so many other fascinating cases of symbiosis in action.
Oh, there are tons. And it's not just about the sea slug either.
Mm.
We also talked about the essential role of microbes in a cow's digestive system.
Right.
These aren't just isolated examples. They're powerful illustrations of how symbiosis works in action,
Yeah.
shaping life in the most unexpected ways.
Absolutely. So when we come back for the final part of this deep dive, we'll delve into some of those specific examples and explore the implications of Margulis's work for understanding the interconnectedness of all life.
Sounds good. I'm looking forward to it.
It's going to be great. So stay with us.
Welcome back to the deep dive. We've been on this incredible journey with Lynn Margulis, exploring her revolutionary ideas about symbiosis and evolution, and we've covered so much ground already, from those ancient bacterial mergers that gave rise to complex cells, all the way to her pretty blunt assessment of humans as mammalian weeds.
It's been amazing to dive into her work like this. Margulis was never afraid to challenge the status quo, even when her ideas, they sparked controversy. Remember her claim that AIDS is actually a form of syphilis, or her belief that consciousness exists in all living cells, not just complex organisms like us humans.
Oh, definitely thought-provoking stuff, for sure.
It is.
But before we wrap up, I want to revisit some of those specific examples Margulis used to illustrate her ideas.
Oh yeah, those are always fascinating. They are. Earlier we briefly touched on the Elysia timida, that sea slug that steals chloroplasts from algae. It's not just stealing energy, right? It actually becomes photosynthetic.
Right. And what's even more remarkable is that the sea slug actually incorporates those stolen chloroplasts into its own cells. It's not just a temporary thing. It actually passes on the genes for photosynthesis to its offspring.
So future generations of sea slugs inherit this ability to make their own food thanks to those symbiotic chloroplasts. That's just incredible.
It is. It sounds like science fiction, but it's actually happening, right now in the ocean.
Yeah, that's so cool. So what other examples did Margulis use to highlight the power of symbiosis?
Well, she often talked about cows and their amazing digestive systems. Cows can't actually break down grass on their own. They rely on this whole community of microbes in their gut to do the heavy lifting.
Oh, it's like a perfect example of a mutually beneficial relationship.
It is.
Those microbes get a steady supply of food, and the cow gets to extract nutrients from something it couldn't digest otherwise. It's a win-win situation.
It is.
All thanks to symbiosis.
All thanks to symbiosis.
It's so cool. So Margulis was also fascinated by the origin of cilia, right? Those tiny hair-like structures found on so many cells. She had this intriguing hypothesis that cilia actually evolved from symbiotic spirochetes. Wait, spirochetes, those spiral-shaped bacteria that can cause some pretty nasty diseases. You're saying those might be the ancestors of these essential structures found in our own cells.
It might sound strange, but she actually had some pretty compelling evidence to support her claim. There are these fascinating videos showing the striking similarities in movement between free-swimming spirochetes and the tails of sperm cells, which are basically modified cilia.
It's like seeing evolution in action right there.
It is.
And it really challenges us to rethink our relationship with bacteria. We tend to view them as the enemy. But Margulis argued that we need to shift our perspective.
She did.
She saw bacteria as our ancestors, the foundation upon which all other life forms are built. Remember, she believed that mitochondria and chloroplasts, those essential parts of our cells, they evolved from free living bacteria billions of years ago.
Right, billions of years ago. It's really quite humbling when you think about it.
It is. So instead of seeing ourselves as separate from the microbial world, we're actually built from it, descended from those ancient bacteria. I mean, it's a humbling thought, isn't it?
It really is. We like to think we're at the top of the evolutionary ladder,
right.
but we're deeply connected to these microscopic life forms.
It's true. It's a reminder that life on Earth is this web of interconnectedness, a constant dance of collaboration and competition. And Margulis's work really highlighted how symbiosis, this merging of different organisms, has been a driving force in shaping that web.
It has been. It's amazing.
It is. So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the one big takeaway you hope our listeners will walk away with?
For me, it's the importance of embracing a more holistic view of life.
Yeah.
You know, Margulis challenged us to move beyond that anthropocentric perspective that puts humans at the center of everything. She encouraged us to see ourselves as part of something much larger and more complex. To recognize our deep connection to all other life forms, from the tiniest bacteria to the largest whales.
It's about understanding that our actions have consequences, not just for ourselves, but for the entire web of life. It's about finding ways to live in harmony with the natural world, recognizing the limits of our planet and the importance of preserving biodiversity.
Exactly. Margulis's work was groundbreaking, not just for its scientific insights, but also for its philosophical implications.
Yeah.
You know, it challenges us to rethink our place in the universe, to question our assumptions, and to find new ways of relating to the natural world.
I love that. So if symbiosis is truly the driving force of evolution, where does that leave humanity?
It's a question worth pondering.
It is, and it's a fitting end to our exploration of Lynn Margulis's extraordinary legacy.
It's been a privilege to share this deep dive with you.
Likewise.
Keep questioning, keep exploring, and never underestimate the power of collaboration, even at the microscopic level.
Beautifully said.